Hello, in this NCERT series, now we'll see our Past 3, Class 8, Chapter 2 from Trade to Territory. Okay. When we refer to modern Indian history, we see that India has been a British colony for several years. Have you ever wondered why British has come to India? We often hear the name East India Company. What is this East India Company? Why has British come to India, and was it only British or any other countries have also come to India to establish their rule? What was the main attraction point that attracted all the Europeans to India and to establish their colonies here? So we will have the answers for all of these questions in this video. Now let's get started. We'll see how the Europeans have got to know where India is and what are its sources and how they established their colonies here. So as we see, here there is a country called Portugal. In Europe there is a country called Portugal, and here is our mother India. So when we see, India has been a trading partner for several countries. It has been trading spices, it has been trading commodities, it has been trading agricultural products. So it has also trading relations with Europe. So when India has been trading with Europe, it has to choose this route to trade to Europe. When we see here, it's a land of Arab merchants. Yes, it's a land of Arab merchants. It has to pass through Red Sea, so it's a land of Arab merchants. When the commodities has to pass from India to Europe, it has to pass through these Arab merchants. Arab merchants, taking the advantage of this situation, they used to impose additional charges as taxes and duties. So the goods by the time they reached Europe became very expensive because of the additional charges these Arab merchants used to impose on them. So Europeans thought there should be some alternative route to trade with India. So they started to navigate some different sea routes to India. In 1498, Vasco da Gama was a Portugal navigator. He started his sea route to the Oriental lands. So he started his naval expedition from this way. So he crossed Cape of Good Hope in Africa. Then he moved on to Indian Ocean. Then he reached India at a place called Calicut. Okay, so this is how the Portuguese entered Vasco da Gama. Through the help of Vasco da Gama, the Portuguese have got to know the sea route to India. So then Portuguese have established factories, they established forts, and they started to trade with India. Okay, so when they have established this sea route without the mediation of Arabs, they have seen that their costs have come down drastically, and so this has attracted more and more Europeans to come and trade. So as we see, why India has been a point of attraction, because India has a rich source of raw materials and other spices of very fine quality. So we see cotton, silk, pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon, and etc. All these type of spices are of fine quality. All the cotton, silk, and other materials are of fine quality. So all the Europeans were attracted to this particular thing. Okay, so as the Portuguese have come to the Cape of Good Hope, 1498, Vasco da Gama. So as the Portuguese have come to India, then slowly each of the European countries have started to explore India. Then Dutch came in 17th century, then followed by French, then followed by English. So how did the English come to England? Come to India. So, as we know, England is ruled by a monarch, like Queen Elizabeth. Queen Elizabeth I was ruling England at that particular time. So, in 1600, Queen Elizabeth issued a charter to East India Company. So, what is this charter? It says that only the English East India Company is permitted to trade in India, and no other company from England is going to trade in India or to compete with the East India Company. So only the alone whole and sole rights to trade in India were given only to the English East India Company and not to any other trading company in England to trade in India. Okay, so this was the charter. So in 1600, English East India Company, with this charter, they have come to India and they started mercantile trading. What is mercantile trading? That is, they buy goods at a cheaper rate and they sell goods at a very higher rate. That is called mercantile trading. So English East India Company took a charter from Queen Elizabeth I in 1600. They have come to India and started the mercantile trading. Okay, they have come, and in 1651 they started their first factory in Hooghly. Okay, on the banks of Hooghly in Bengal. Later on, they acquired the zamindari of 3 villages, and during his time, there was Aurangzeb, famous Mughal emperor. So he issued a farman to the East India Company. So what is a farman? So a farman literally means duty-free trade. So you can trade without paying any duties to the Mughal rulers. Okay, so this was the establishment of English East India Company. So have you ever wondered if Portuguese, Dutch, French and English, so these countries have come to India to establish their colonies, while English alone were able to sustain for a long period and establish a powerful colony in India? So the reason is here. So when we see, these 4 of them were very powerful forces, and their main aim was to have a trade monopoly. Okay, they wanted a large share of trade. They wanted a monopoly. They don't want any competition to come. Okay, so this started a rivalry between these European countries. So there were rivalries. So they blocked their ship routes, and they always carried arms with them, and they started to build the forts also. So when you want to build a fort in particular area, you need to have a permission from the local ruler, or the local ruler had to be favorable to you in order to start the fortification process and to trade with them. So what happened is, the local rulers also got involved in this process of this rivalry and the European forces. Okay, so this way the trade and politics have got a link. Okay, so in this way, English has dismissed Portuguese, has dismissed Dutch from Anglo-Dutch rivalry, and dismissed French from by connecting Carnatic wars. So all those 3 were dismissed, and English alone was able to conquer most of the India and establish its colony. Okay. So as we see here, Aurangzeb has granted a farman to English East India Company. So what is farman? It means duty-free trade. You need not pay any duty to continue the trade. So it was given to English East India Company. But what happened? Even the private people, even the private persons of the British persons in India, they started to trade duty-free. Okay, this was only given to English East India Company, but they started a private trade also without paying any duty. So what happens? This led to loss of revenue to the Bengal government. Okay. So due to this large loss of revenue to the Bengal government, this created a war-like situation between the Bengal and the East India Company. Okay. Then that led to the famous Battle of Plassey in 1757. So here we have an interesting fact. So we say Battle of Plassey. So what is this Plassey? Plassey is also called Palasi. It's a place in West Bengal. So how did it get this name? Because of the Palasi tree, which is over here. Okay, it is a kind of special sacred tree in West Bengal. It is mainly used for making gulal, or the powdered color we used for Holi. Okay, there's the matter. So the main reason for Battle of Plassey, we have got the main reason of Battle of Plassey. Like, the private individuals also started to get a duty-free trade, and then company officials also stopped to pay any duties, and they were making large profits out of the trade, and they started to build forts, etc. So that created disturbance in the ruling of Bengal and created a large loss of revenue. So they have that led to the Battle of Plassey in the 1757. So we'll go into the details of Battle of Plassey. So Battle of Plassey in the year 1757. So Murshid Quli Khan was the Nawab of Bengal. So the actual revolt, the actual bone of contention, which was said, that was started during the reign of Murshid Quli Khan. Okay, so later his successor Alivardi Khan also fought with British. That means he was very furious with British and his policies and everything. And then his successor Sirajuddaula took this step to eliminate British from his province. So Sirajuddaula had a conflict with British about the revenue that they are losing, and he commanded the company to pay duties and stop fortification process. But the company retaliated that the local officials have to support them in order to conduct duty-free trade, etc. So this created a tension between both of the parties, and Sirajuddaula with his 30,000 soldiers and marched to Qasim Bazar. He executed many company officials, he destroyed their forts, and then he marched to Calcutta, and the revolt was getting fierce and fierce. So then Robert Clive, he took the in charge of everything, and he suppressed the Battle of Plassey. He suppressed the Sirajuddaula. He killed he stopped the violence, and then he totally dismissed the Battle of Plassey, and he occupied the authority once again. So this, as far as we know, so this was the first war that British fought in India and actually succeeded in it. So this is the main thing, this is the main war where Britishers got a control and authority over Indian kingdom. Okay. So what was the main reason that Sirajuddaula got defeated, in spite of his bravery and valor and a large number of soldiers? Why did he get defeated? Because of the internal conspiracies. Okay, there was a commander called Mir Jafar. So he was a commander of Sirajuddaula. So the British promised him that if he had supported British instead of Sirajuddaula, he will be the next king, and he will be given the throne. So for this reason, he led a conspiracy against Sirajuddaula. He never fought the battle, and he supported Britishers. So they were able to defeat Sirajuddaula and made Mir Jafar the Nawab of Bengal. Okay. Then he placed Britishers want a puppet rule in Bengal because they want duty-free trades, they want forts, and they want everything according to their own will and wish. So they wanted that a Nawab of Bengal should be a puppet ruler in their hands, so that whatever they wanted could happen in their way. So they promised the throne to Mir Jafar. Then again, as he was also creating conflicts between the British and East India Company and Bengal. He was replaced with Mir Qasim, but Mir Qasim was also not satisfied with the Britishers' policies. Okay, so that led to the Battle of Buxar. So British were not satisfied that the revolting Nawabs of Bengal, again they placed Mir Jafar on the throne. So these were all going on in that process. So in 1764, so they led a battle called Battle of Buxar. After Battle of Buxar, there was a treaty between the Mughal Emperor and the Nawab and the Britishers. And in that particular treaty in 1765, Britishers acquired Diwani rights over some provinces. What are Diwani rights? That means they can collect the revenue and the tax from that particular provinces. Okay, so when they collect the revenue, so what happened? Whatever the purchase, see, as we know, Britishers used to purchase raw materials from India and used to export it to British. Okay, and they used to sell the goods again to India. So when they have to purchase the raw materials, they need some money. So they used to sell gold and silver, or they used to take extra additional money, and they used to buy the raw materials. But now, as they have acquired Diwani rights, they get the revenue, they get the taxes from the local people, so that all the money that is needed for raw materials and other purchases in India, spices or raw materials, anything, whatever the purchases they need, they can do it through this revenue and taxes. Yes, the purchases can be made, and the cost to maintain their soldiers or any extravagant cost that can be also be collected in the forms of revenues. So they had so they need not get expenditure from outsiders. They got all the expenditure, purchases, etc., all from the Diwani rights they have acquired from the 1765 treaty. Okay, so they themselves treated themselves as Nawabs. Okay, so this was the main important event where they have established an economic superiority, economic and political superiority over the people. Okay, as Britishers have changed different political, economical, and diplomatic rules. As we see, when we go for the political nature of the country, what are the political impacts they have made? They have started a concept called subsidiary alliance. What is subsidiary alliance? So if there is a kingdom, so they have told, they kept a proposal that, so the Britishers will maintain the army. Okay, the Britishers will maintain their own army for the protection of the kingdom. So Britishers' enemies are his enemies, and the kingdom's friends are his friends. So they, in that particular policy, what they have done is, Britishers said, we will maintain the army, we will maintain protection to you all the time. Okay, you just have to pay us some revenue. Okay, that is what the subsidiary alliance means. If they are not able, if the Indian kingdoms are not able to pay the revenue, then the kingdom will be annexed. This was the concept of subsidiary alliance. British will provide army for the kingdom, and the kingdom has to pay revenue for the Britishers in return. If they are not able to pay the revenue, the kingdom will be annexed. This was the concept of subsidiary alliance. So Awadh was not able to pay some amount, so that was occupied. Then Hyderabad also was not able to do it, and the Hyderabad also was some part of Hyderabad was also occupied through this concept of subsidiary alliance. This was the first imperial policy. Okay, so we have seen. So we'll move on to the each kingdom and how they were annexed. The first kingdom is Mysore. So Mysore was being ruled by powerful rulers, and Hyder Ali was the most powerful ruler of Mysore, and British started conflict with them, and then Tipu Sultan has come into picture. Okay, Tipu Sultan has come into picture. As we see, as this is India, so they used to this is Karnataka. Tipu Sultan and the Mysore ruling was in this part of the country. So there was a large so there was a trade of pepper and cardamom in the Malabar coast. So it was rich in pepper and cardamom. It was under control of Mysore. So Britishers want this particular trade monopoly in this particular region. So they started conflict with the Mysore. Okay. One thing what Tipu Sultan did was, as we know that Mysore is very famous for sandalwood, right? So Tipu Sultan has stopped the export of sandalwood, and this created more and more rivalry between these two parties. So due to the abundance of pepper and cardamom, and also the stopping of the export of sandalwood to other countries, and also Tipu Sultan was favorable to French. This created a rivalry between the English East India Company and the Mysore. That is called and a series of Anglo-Mysore wars has taken place. So due to this, the series of Anglo-Mysore war has taken place, and the famous Battle of Seringapatam was fought between the Mysore and Tipu Sultan and Britishers. Okay. Then Tipu Sultan was finally defeated, and after it, the subsidiary alliance was imposed on Mysore, and the Wadaya dynasty was ascended through the throne. Okay, this was about Mysore. Now we'll move on to Marathas. After third battle of Panipat, so we know third battle of Panipat was fought between Nadir Shah and the Marathas. So there were different small kingdoms in Marathas ruled by Gaikwads, Bhonsles, Sindhyas and Holkars, etc. So these chiefs were subordinate to the Peshwa. So Peshwa was the main principal minister, who was the military head and administrative head, and he was based in Pune. So we have the two most important figures like Mahaji Sindhya and Nana Fadnis. So they were the famous Maratha soldiers of the 18th century. So English fought a war with Marathas, and in a 3 consecutive wars, called the Anglo-Maratha Wars. And the first war ended with the Treaty of Salbai in 1782, and the second war ended where the British occupied the territories of Orissa and the banks of Yamuna, that included Agra and Delhi. Okay, in 1805, and in the third Anglo-Maratha War, the Britishers completely destroyed the Marathas and occupied the part of Vindhyas. So this, so we have seen Mysore and the Marathas. So this created an imperialistic mindset in the Britishers, and Lord Warren Hastings has started to annex more and more kingdoms in his territory. So then some of them got annexed, and some of them fought very bravely. Example, we have an interesting story of Rani Channamma. She is also called the first female freedom fighter. So Britishers tried to annex these small states, and then one of the state was called Kittur. It's a part of Karnataka. So they tried to annex Kittur, and Rani Channamma fought very bravely against Britishers, but she led an anti-British resistance. But later on, that revolt was also dismissed, and they occupied Kittur. But it was the valor and the bravery that she has showed, she lives as a masterpiece of female freedom fighters. So the expansion policy went on to northwest now. Why? Because Russia was expanding its power, so they thought Russia could expand its power onto the northwest of India. So they started their expedition to the northwest. They started their expedition to the northwest of India. So this part, the Britishers started to occupy Sindh and in Afghanistan, and they started occupying Sindh, and slowly their next target was Punjab. But Punjab, they offered a resistance by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. He offered very great resistance to Britishers, so they were not able to occupy Punjab. But their relentless efforts have led to Anglo-Sikh wars, several Anglo-Sikh wars, and then Punjab was also annexed. Okay. And in addition to these imperialistic policies, there was a law called Doctrine of Lapse, which was introduced by Lord Dalhousie. Okay, so Lord Dalhousie was the Governor General during that period. So what this law says is, if a king of the Indian kingdom, if a king doesn't have an immediate male successor, then that kingdom goes to the British rule. Okay, so that means the kingdoms in annexed are Satara, Sambhalpur, Jhansi, Nagpur, Udaipur, and Awadh. Satara was the first, which was annexed by this Doctrine of Lapse. As we know, the famous Jhansi, as the king did not have a successor, male successor, so the adopted child was not accepted by British, so Jhansi was annexed in 1854 by the Doctrine of Lapse. This was the most imperialistic policy that they have followed in order to establish their colonial rule. Okay. So then we have seen the policies and how they have annexed different kingdoms. Now we'll see the administrative, the judicial, and the military organization of the Britishers. So as we see, Warren Hastings was an important figure in the British history. And the 1773 it was the rule of the Regulating Act. So what is this Regulating Act? They have passed a series of acts in the British Empire, and the Regulating Act was the first act that has been passed. So what are these different provisions? We'll see here. So they have annexed Bengal, Bombay, and Madras. Okay, so these are called as presidencies. Okay. So Bengal, we had 3 presidencies at that moment: Bengal, Bombay, and Madras. These are called presidencies, and each presidency was headed by a governor. Okay. This is about the presidencies. And then the court system, the judicial system was changed. Like there was a court, and that they were divided into two different types of courts: criminal court and civil court. Okay, criminal court is called Faujdari Adalat, civil court is called Diwani Adalat, and it was they were mostly based on Indian laws, and Indians used to interpret them to the Britishers, and they used to take the judgment according to it. And criminal court was under the rule of Qazi, and under the decisions of the Qazi and Mufti. Okay, they were the judge and the religious heads of that particular religion. Okay, in this case, civil court and criminal court were established. And then later on, 1773, Supreme Court was established in Calcutta, and also a court of appeal was also established in the same year in Calcutta. Okay, so this was about the judicial nature. This is all court of appeal is also called as Sardar Nizamat Adalat. It is also in the Calcutta. This was about the judicial system. And when we see the administrative, when we come to the administrative system, so collectorate, this was the main source of power. So they appointed collectors, and collectors with the help of judges and police officers, they used to rule that particular province. So bureaucracy and collectorate were the most important source of administrative power in the British administration. Okay. When we come to the military, so British military have undergone different changes, and we know that they are the most powerful and disciplined army in that particular era. So first they used to comprise of cavalry, paidal, and cavalry is that the army with horses, and the paidal is the foot soldiers, and they used to be very trained at archery. Okay. Then slowly what happened is they used to recruit peasants in the army. That is called as that. So that mainly went after the name of Sepoy army. We'll see Sepoy Mutiny in the next classes. So they started recruiting peasants, and that is called the Sepoy army. And then what happened after this cavalry, paidal, and archery, and all Sepoy army, etc. This all happened. But later on, due to the increasing wars with all other nations, like they have started fighting with Burma, Egypt, and also other different countries, they started to advance their technology in the defense. So then they started muskets and matchlocks. So these are called the muskets and matchlocks. These were introduced in the British army system, and they undergone rigorous training, discipline, etc. As you can see here, they were undergoing different training systems, and they were having regular drills and discipline, and the regular salaries were created. So they have the regulated life, and so this was the main binding force of the British military. Now we'll go through some quick questionnaire. So Jhansi was annexed in through which policy and in which year? Doctrine of Lapse 1834, Subsidiary Alliance 1856, Subsidiary Alliance 1854, and Doctrine of Lapse 1854. As we know, Doctrine of Lapse means if a king doesn't have an immediate male successor, then the kingdom is annexed. And Subsidiary Alliance means if the Britishers will provide army for the kingdom, and the kingdom has to pay revenue for the British in return. If they are not able to pay the revenue in return, then the kingdom is annexed. So as we know, we have seen Jhansi was annexed through the Doctrine of Lapse. But in which year? It was in the year 1854. So option D would be right. Then Doctrine of Lapse was introduced by Warren Hastings, Robert Clive, Lord Dalhousie, and Cornwallis. So the answer would be Lord Dalhousie. Then, so now we'll match some of the important battles and with whom they are fought. So Battle of Plassey. So as we know, Battle of Plassey is fought in Bengal. So who was the Nawab of Bengal? Siraj-ud-Dawla, right? At the time of 1757. Who was 1757, right? So who was the Nawab of Bengal? Siraj-ud-Dawla. So Battle of Plassey is Siraj-ud-Dawla. And Battle of Seringapatam. We've seen the Battle of Seringapatam as a result as one of the Anglo-Mysore War. So Mysore, who was ruling Mysore? Tipu Sultan. So Battle of Seringapatam would match to Tipu Sultan. And Battle of Buxar was with the Nawab of Bengal, but in 1764. So that was with Mir Qasim. So now we'll see the rulers associated with the places. So Rani Chennamma, she is known for her valor and bravery and the female freedom fighter. So she is associated with a small kingdom in Karnataka called Kittur. So she belongs to Kittur. Sirajuddaula, the famous Battle of Plassey, he is the Nawab of Bengal. So he goes to Bengal. Hyder Ali, Hyder Ali is a famous ruler of Mysore. So he moves to Mysore. Then Maharaja Ranjit Singh is also a brave ruler and he has led anti-British resistance and he belongs to Punjab. Yes. So here ends today's topic on from trade to territory, how British have come to India, how different foreign companies have come to India, how Britishers have annexed different kingdoms and their military policies, economic policies, and administrative policies. So we'll move on to the next chapter with more further details. Now we'll quickly see the chronology of the events that have happened in the past. Okay. So 1498, Vasco da Gama came to India. So it was 1498 that Portuguese came to India. 1600, England came to India. And in 1602, Dutch came to India. In 1616, Danish people came to India. And it was in 1664 that French came in India. So as we see, the order of European invasions is Portuguese, England, Dutch, Danish and French. So remember this acronym PEDDF. Okay. So Portuguese, English, Dutch, Danish and French. This is the order of European invasions in India. So as we know, 1651, first factory at Hooghly was established by the Britishers. And the Battle of Plassey was held in 1757. Battle of Buxar with Sirajuddaula, Battle of Plassey, Sirajuddaula, 1757. Battle of Buxar with Mir Qasim in 1764. And British acquired Diwani rights after Battle of Buxar. So it would be in the year 1765. And they established Supreme Court at Calcutta in the year 1773 in the rule of Warren Hastings. Then we have in 1801, Awadh was annexed by the concept of subsidiary alliance, and in 1848, Satara was annexed in the case of doctrine of lapse. In 1854, Jhansi was annexed in the case of doctrine of lapse. So here ends the lecture today.